Okay, tell me something about yourself.
My name is Anisha Saraudi. I'm from a small town, Suratgarh, Rajasthan. I've completed my entire schooling from Sacred Heart Convent School, Suratgarh itself. Thereafter, I had pursued Chartered Accountancy course from ICI Jaipur. After completing CA, I've worked in a small CA firm, Sushant Jalan and Associates, in statutory audit profile. Currently, I'm working with PwC India as an associate 2 in stat audit department.
तो आप ये जो आंसर बोलेगा इसमें आपको बता दें, आप स्मॉल फॉर्म बार बार यूज करता, आप सब बोल के आप मिड साइज फॉर्म बोलिएगा, ठीक है। और आप जब पीडब्ल्यूसी में क्या काम किया उसके बारे में सब बोलेगा, दैट आई हैव डन इन माय पीडब्ल्यूसी वर्क थ्रू टेस्ट ऑफ कंट्रोल, टेस्ट ऑफ डिटेल्स, आई हैव हैंडल एरियाज लाइक फिक्स्ड एसेट्स, इन्वेंटरी। तो दिस वाज द मेन एरिया व्हिच आई हैव हैंडल्ड इन माय वर्क एक्सपोजर। तो ये सब चीज आप ऐड ऑन कर लीजिए, लिख लीजिए चीज जो मैं बोला ना, आप जो मेजर मेजर एरियाज किया था थोड़ा उसके बारे में बोलेगा, ठीक है। आई वांटेड टू जॉइन योर फर्म बिकॉज आई वाज डीपली इंटरेस्टेड इन दिस प्रोफाइल, okay, and I would be grateful if I can get an opportunity. And last one, to let me know if anything else you'd like to know from me.
ठीक
है, ये चीज याद रखिएगा, ठीक है। Do let me know if anything else, and I would be grateful if I get this opportunity. तो एक बार थोड़ा और इम्प्रूव करेगा ये चीज को, ठीक है। दूसरा, आई कांटेक्ट एकदम वो रखने का कोशिश करेगा इंटरव्यूअर के साथ। आप चाहे तो लैपटॉप है तो लैपटॉप को उसको देख लीजिए, तो उससे ज्यादा इजी रहेगा, ठीक है। Okay. Okay. What are the audit procedures in fixed assets when you audit?
When we audit fixed assets, so first of all, we obtain a fixed asset registers from the client. Thereafter, we check the completeness from fixed asset register with the fixed asset schedule and from the trial balance and balance sheet. Thereafter, we need to check that whether the acquisition of fixed assets is correct or not, means that it should be capitalized as per Ind AS 16 or not. Then we need to also check about the existence of fixed assets, which we can check by the physical verification regarding that whether the assets do exist or not, which have been mentioned in the FAR, and also about the damaged or obsolete assets. Then we can check about the rights and obligations of the fixed assets, which we can verify from the title deeds of immovable properties. Thereafter, we can check the valuation at which value fixed assets have been valued, which we can verify from the as per the Ind AS 16, that the total cost has been capitalized along with all the expenses which need to be capitalized, and from the date when the date is also correct when it needs to be capitalized. Thereafter, we will also check the presentation and disclosure requirements, which we can verify where the fixed assets have been recorded in the balance sheet. It should be on the asset side under head the tangible assets.
You have written in your CV like you have prepared the walkthrough of entity level controls. What is entity level control?
So every company has its own controls over the process, over the business process of the companies. So I have checked the entity level controls of majorly 3 areas, which includes fixed assets, cash and cash equivalents, and share capital. So do you need me to tell you something regarding those controls? So if we take the area of cash and cash equivalents or treasury area, so there are different controls in different industries. So I have checked the control in PayU Payments Private Limited. So there was a control that if borrowing is to be made, then there has to be board resolution need to be passed for that. And further, there has to be appropriate mail or approval from the CFO or authorized signatory. So what we have checked that when any borrowing was made, so appropriate steps were followed. For example, BR was passed and approval mail has been done. And accordingly, we have checked samples for that in the walkthrough also. Then we can check other banking operations, for example, opening of bank account, closing of bank account. In that also, there were appropriate authorized signatory approval was required. And we have also checked these from minutes, that whether there is any change in the appropriate authorized signatories or not, or whether there is any change in the controls regarding cash and cash equivalents, or any change in ownership of controls, and whether they were operating effectively or not. Similarly, there was one more control in the investments area. So there was an automatically sweep deposits from the surplus funds which need to be made with Citibank and JP Morgan Bank. So we have checked from the FD tracker and from the bank statements of Citibank and JP Morgan Bank. Also, we received a balance certificate from these banks to verify whether the FD were made on the proper date, and whether proper interest was recognized in the books of company. Similarly, if we take the control area of share capital, so in the control, it was mentioned that whenever there is any alteration in the share capital, either it's an increase or decrease in the share capital, so we need to check that BR need to be passed for that. And further, all those secretarial and legal compliances are also being followed or not. So on sample basis, we have checked, although there was no changes in share capital in the current year, so no further procedures were applied. And if we take in the case of fixed assets, so since it was a payment gateway company, so there was majorly the fixed assets includes of land and buildings and office equipments of computers. So they had a different procedure, which I noticed, that whenever the asset is purchased, so they enter the details in a Symphony tool, and then they used to print a asset tagging QR code, which was pasted on the laptops. And after that, the AP team used to verify from the supporting documents whether PO has been placed or not. And after that, entry was passed into the SAP, and it was verified from their one more tool, Pearl tool. So accordingly, I have checked all these risk control metrics and prepared walkthrough for that.
Try to keep your answer short and precise, not more than 1.5 minutes. तो वैसे करके आप कैलकुलेट करके ना थोड़ा सा शॉर्ट रखने का कोशिश करें, 1.5 minutes 2 minutes, तो वो थोड़ा ठीक रहेगा. ठीक है. सेकेंड थिंग, आप काम करिए ऑडियो क्वालिटी पे. तो एक माइक ले लीजिए, तो वो थोड़ा सा काम आएगा कि सामने वाले को सुनाई भी दे. तो दैट इज समथिंग, 2 things. हाँ, तो आंसर का वो आना चाहिए आपको 1.5 से 2 मिनट के अंदर, कि आप चाहेगा कि ज्यादा से ज्यादा सवाल पूछ सके आपको. ठीक है, तो वही चीज है कि आप जितना लंबा आंसर बोलेंगे उतना ज्यादा ग्रिल करेगा फिर. तो वो भी एक है, तो 1.5 से 2 मिनट तो का ज्यादा बेटर रहेगा. ठीक है, लिख लीजिएगा जो मैंने बोला. ठीक है, और ऑडियो क्वालिटी. ठीक है. 116. ओके, यू हैव वर्कड अपॉन द एप्लीकेशन ऑफ 116. व्हाट वर योर मेजर ऑब्जर्वेशंस व्हेन यू आर डूइंग 116 leases?
So my major observations were, as we have obtained the lease deed from the client, so there were many agreements and there were many miscalculations which were performed by the company. For example, they have accounted for for one agreement twice instead, and there was one agreement which for that they have not accounted also. So major observations were basically wrong calculation in the lease, and entry was also not correctly passed. So accordingly, we have told them to recalculate the entire lease, working of the leases.
And what are your major observations when you're doing the Ind AS 115? Any observations you come across?
Yeah, so Ind AS 115, I've checked it for a company named Indus Gartex Limited. So basically, it was a manufacturing company for female garments. So what they used to do, they were used to recognize revenue as and when the goods were delivered. But since they have option of right to return, so they were not recognizing any refund liability or contract liability as a separate PO. They used to pass the entry, for example, bank to sales. So as per Ind AS 115, we told them that they need to book liability, and whenever the return has been, whenever the customer returns, or if the return period is over, then they can recognize that amount as a sales. And if there is a return, then they need to increase their inventory with the same amount, because the inventory is also decreased whenever they book a refund liability for that.
Okay. Um, how will you audit a payroll expenses?
So for payroll expenses, first we need to obtain the list of the employees. There is a register for that, and then we need to match. Then we need to check certain area. What are the headcounts? How many new joinees have joined the firm? How many have resigned from the firm? How the salary is calculated? Uh, if any employee is how the leaves are calculated, and how the salary is given, like is there any approval or something like that, and are there any bogus workers working in the company, how many employees are there on the contract, how many are on the permanent role, accordingly.
Okay. Why want to switch from PwC in 7 months?
There is no specific reason for changing the firm. From the starting of my career itself, along with Articleship, I worked on Indian clients, and I have been working with the Indian laws, Indian standards. And I was very keen to gain knowledge about the global standards and work with the global clients. So this was the main reason for switching from PwC.
Okay. Okay, you have worked on Ind AS 37 as well. Okay, what are things that you have done in this?
So in this 37, we have recognized that what amount should be recorded as in the provision and what should be recorded as contingencies. So in provision, we basically see that there should be a present obligation which should be arisen as a result of past events, and we can assure that there will be a probable outflow of resources, and we can also, there should be certainty that a reliable estimate can also be made of the same amount. Whereas if we see the contingent amount or contingencies, in that there is a possible obligation, but it should not be there should be a possible obligation, means it is not yet confirmed that the firm firm have to pay that amount. Also we cannot certain the amount which needs to be paid. So accordingly, for example, if there is a litigation and which is continuing which is continuing, so we need to see whether there is a possible obligation or there is a present obligation. So accordingly, we will classify that provisions and contingencies.
In which of the client which you have done, you have found provision contingency? And what was the contingency which you come across?
So I have worked on India 37 on a client called Indus Gartex. So there they were having a litigation with an competitor firm. So they have booked that amount as a contingency. But seeing the circumstances and seeing the proceedings, it was reasonably assured that they a competitor firm in the future. So we asked them to make a provision for the same instead of showing it as a contingent liability.
Okay. How do you do the audit planning? Have you been involved in audit planning from start to the end in any of their
Yes,
clients?
yes, sir. In PwC, I was engaged in the audit planning from the start to end. So audit planning majorly starts from the pre-engagement activities, which we consider
Which of the
understanding the
client,
business
you did audit planning?
in PayU Payments Private Limited.
Okay.
So the planning basically starts from understanding of the businesses, and then signing of the letter of engagement, and then independence mail. So it is sent to all the team members in order to confirm that there is no involvement in the directorship or any other activity of the affairs of the company. Thereafter, we understand the business procedure, the revenue models, its control, in which environment it controls, and what are the risk assessment procedures related to the company, what are the controls, how the company is operating over those controls. Then there is a kickoff meetings, which happens, which I have first noticed in PwC only. So there the engagement partners tells us about his experience in the same industry, what steps we need to follow, what we should need to consider. Thereafter, we obtain the financials from the client, and we extrapolate it for the entire year and measure the and see the what are the major changes in the overall financials on a broad level. Thereafter, we determine the nature, timing, and extent of the substantive audit to be performed on the basis of those control. Thereafter, we determine the materiality uh, on the basis of the information which we have received.
Okay, how did you
And
determine the materiality in this?
So in this, majorly we have determined the materiality on the basis of the profit before taxes. So it was 5% of the profit, and so we have determined the overall materiality for the same. Thereafter, we also determined PM performance materiality, which is the maximum tolerable limit, and we gave a haircut of 30% for the same.
30%.
And we also, yeah,
very less.
and we all. Since PwC was conducting the audit of that company from a very long time, and we did not notice any such kind of risk of material misstatement in the financial of that company. So we took a haircut of 30% for the same.
Okay.
After that, there was a planning. We have to see that whether we need to use the work of other auditor or any other valuation expert. And then there was a sign off of planning also.
30%
starting the execution.
30% of overall materiality you took.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And you also took the clearly trivial threshold limit. What was that?
Sir, so actually, we took like a 30% haircut. So it was 70% of the overall materiality. And then we took a clearly threshold level. It was like very less amount. I don't know the exact percentage. I need to check over that.
Okay. How do you check a going concern? Do you did the going concern checking also in any of the clients?
Especially, I did not perform going concern on any of the clients, but according to my knowledge, we can check the going concern from the financials of the company. We can see whether there is any loss which have been occurred in the company, or there are any unusual transactions or any circumstances that may exist which may affect the going concern of the company.
Cut-off procedure, how will you do in the revenue case?
Sorry, sir. Can you repeat?
Cut-off procedure.
Cut-off procedures. Okay. So for revenue, the cut-off procedures which we usually do is we take a samples. Like for example, the year ending is on 31st March. So we take samples 10 to 12 days before 31st March and 10 to 12 days after 31st March. So, for example, if it is a case of exports and there is two different terms which we call free FOB and CIF. So, in case there is an FOB for the client. So, for example, if the goods have been loaded to the ship on 27th March itself, we got an invoice of the same, and the date on bill of lading is 2nd April. So if the company has recorded the sales, then the sales must have been recorded in the next financial year. So we need to check whether the company has recorded the revenue before 31st March or after 31st March. Similarly, if the goods, the date on bill of lading is 27th March and company has recognized the revenue for the next year, so the same needs to be recognized for this year.
Right. And how will you do the audit of this cash and bank balances? What are the procedures you'll do in cash and bank?
Okay, sir. So for cash, we check the physical verification and also we obtain a certificate from the management. And for bank balance, we send confirmations to the bank for obtaining the balance certificate from the banks for confirming the balances. Also, we can check the subsequent clearance of those items and the reconciling items. And also we can check whether there are any checks which have been due for more than 3 months or there are any stale checks. And bank cash in bank also includes like this FD balance and also. So for that, we can obtain FDR receipts. Accordingly, we can recompute the interest on FDR receipts. For that also, we can obtain a certificate from the bank for confirming the FD balance. Then we can also check whether in 26 AS, TDS must have been deducted for the interest of FD.
Okay. What is your greatest strength?
My greatest strength is, I think, my collaborative nature and team spirit. I work very well when I'm working with 4 to 5 members in a team. And considering this, I think it is my biggest strength.
And what is your weakness you feel you have?
My weakness is sometimes I get obsessed with perfecting the work, and sometimes I ignore the deadlines because of that. Whenever I receive comments from my senior regarding, so I'm trying to make a balance between the perfectionist and the timely deadlines.
Okay. If you join our firm, okay, what you can expect from us? What expectations you have from us, from a company?
My expectations are learning and growth opportunities from the KPMG, a good friendly work environment, and also working with more global clients to gain a more deeper knowledge about the global reporting standards.
So what are your salary expectation?
My salary expectation is as per industry standards, which the normal hike every industry gives.
Okay. Do you have any questions for us?
Yes, sir. I wanted to know, like, how was your learning curve for this firm, since you have been a part of this firm from a very long time?
Learning has been great, and we have been associated with many challenging projects, and you need to travel a lot when you join out here and take responsibilities. And at the same time, you have to teach your juniors also out here and make sure that they also do the work on time. So there will be learning will be very good out here. And so as the earning opportunity will also be there, growth opportunity will be there when you join. And the culture is also very good out here. So I don't think there will be any problem. Only thing is that you need to take up some responsibilities, and that is the most important thing. And try to complete the work on deadlines. That is the most important.
Yes, sir.
I think you will be able to do in case you get selected. You will have another round after this. Thank you.
Thank you so much.